The Long March was a military retreat undertaken by the Red Army of the Communist Party of China, the forerunner of the People's Liberation Army, to evade the pursuit of the Kuomintang army. There was not one long march, but a series of marches, as various communist armies in the south escaped to the north and west. The best known is the march from Jiangxi province, which began in October 1934. The First Front Army of the Chinese Soviet Republic, led by an inexperienced military commission, was on the brink of annihilation by Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek's troops in their stronghold in Jiangxi province. The Communists, under the eventual command of Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai, escaped in a circling retreat to the west and north, which reportedly traversed over 9,000 kilometers over 370 days. The route passed through some of the most difficult terrain of western China by traveling west then north, to Shaanxi. The Long March began Mao Zedong's ascent to power, whose leadership during the retreat gained him the support of the members of the party. The bitter struggles of the Long March, which was completed by only about one-tenth of the force that left Jiangxi, would come to represent a significant episode in the history of the Communist Party of China, and would seal the personal prestige of Mao and his supporters as the new leaders of the party in the following decades. Timeline: 1930. Unofficial founding of the Jiangxi Fujian Soviet by Mao Zedong and Shida. 1931. December. Zhou Enlai arrives in Ruijin and replaces Mao as leader of the CCP. 1932. October. At the Ningdu Conference, major CCP military leaders criticize Mao's tactics. Mao is demoted to figurehead status. 1933. Bogu and Otto Braun arrive from the USSR, reorganize the Red Army, and take control of party affairs. They defeat 4 encirclement campaigns. 1933. September 25. Start of the 5th encirclement campaign. Bo and Braun are defeated. 1934. October 16. Breakout of 130,000 soldiers and civilians led by Bogu and Otto Braun, beginning the Long March. 1934. November 25 – December 3. Battle of Xiang River. 1935. January 15 to 17. Zunyi Conference. The leadership of Bo and Braun is denounced. Zhou becomes the most powerful person in the party. Mao becomes Zhou's assistant. 1935. June-July. Troops under Zhou and Mao meet with Zhang Guothrou's troops. The two forces disagree on strategy, and separate. 1935. April 29 – May 8. Crossing of the Jinsha River, a major tributary of the Yangtze. 1935. May 22. Yihai alliance with the Yi people. 1935. May 29. CCP forces capture Luding Bridge. 1935. July. CCP forces cross the Jade Dragon Snow Mountains. 1935. August. CCP forces cross the Zoiga Marsh. 1935. September 16. CCP forces cross the Laziku Pass. 1935. October 22. Union of the 3 armies in Shaanxi. End of the Long March. 1935. November. Mao becomes leader of the CCP. Zhou becomes Mao's assistant. Background: the Red Army in 1934. Although the literal translation of the Chinese Changgeng is Long March, official publications of the People's Republic of China refer to the Long March of the Red Army. The Long March most commonly refers to the transfer of the main group of the First Red Army, which included the leaders of the Communist Party of China, from Yudu in the province of Jiangxi, to Yunnan in Shaanxi. In this sense, the Long March lasted from October 16, 1934 to October 19, 1935. In a broader view, the Long March included 2 other forces retreating under pressure from the Kuomintang: the Second Red Army and the Fourth Red Army. The retreat of all the Red Armies was not complete until October 22, 1935, when the three forces linked up in Shaanxi. The divisions of the Chinese Workers' and Peasants' Red Army were named according to historical circumstances, sometimes in a non-consecutive way. Early communist units often formed by defection from existing Kuomintang forces, keeping their original designations. By the time of the Long March, numerous small units had been organized into three unified groups: the 1st Red Army, the 2nd Red Army and the 4th Red Army. Some translations refer to these same units as the 1st Front Red Army, 2nd Front Red Army, and 4th Front Red Army, to distinguish them from the earlier organizational divisions. The 1st Red Army formed from the 1st, 3rd and 5th Army groups in southern Jiangxi under command of Bo Gu and Otto Braun, when the 4th Red Army under Zhang Guothao was formed in the Sichuan-Shaanxi border area from several smaller units. No standard nomenclature of the armies of the Communist Party existed. Moreover, during the Chinese Civil War, central control of separate communist-controlled enclaves within China was limited. After the organization of these first two main forces, the 2nd Red Army formed in eastern Guizhou by unifying the 2nd and 6th Army groups under He Long and Coke. A 3rd Red Army was led by He Long, who established his base area in the Hunan-Hubei border. By 1932 his forces were soundly defeated and in October 1934 merged with the 6th Army Corps led by Coke to form the 2nd Red Army. The three armies would maintain their historical designation as the 1st, 2nd and 4th Red Armies until Communist military forces were nominally integrated into the National Revolutionary Army, forming the 8th Route Army and the new 4th Army. During the Second Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 1945, Civil War, the Communist Party of China, founded in 1921 by Chen Duxiu with Soviet support, initially collaborated with the Chinese Nationalist Party or Kuomintang, founded by the revolutionary Republican Sun Yat-sen. After the unexpected death of Sun in March 1925, a power struggle within the KMT favored Chiang Kai-shek, whose Northern Expedition forces succeeded in wresting control of large areas of China from local warlords, establishing a unified government in Nanjing in April 1927. Unlike other nationalist leaders, like Wang Jingwei, Chiang was hostile to continued collaboration with the Communists. This initial period of cooperation to unify China and end the unequal treaties broke up in April 1927 when Chiang Kai-shek struck out against the Communists. Unsuccessful urban insurrections and the suppression of the Communist Party in Shanghai and other cities drove many party supporters to rural strongholds such as the Jiangxi Soviet organized by Mao Zedong. By 1928, deserters and defecting Kuomintang army units, supplemented by peasants from the Communist Rural Soviets, formed the Chinese Workers' and Peasants' Red Army. The ideological confrontation between the CCP and the KMT soon evolved into the first phase of the Chinese Civil War, the Jiangxi Soviet. By 1930, the Communist Red Army had established the Chinese Soviet Republic in the provinces of Jiangxi and Fujian around the city of Ruijin, including industrial facilities. After the establishment of the Jiangxi Soviet, Mao's status within the party declined. In 1930, Mao claimed a need to eliminate alleged KMT spies and anti-Bolsheviks operating inside the Jiangxi Soviet and began an ideological campaign featuring torture and guilt by association, in order to eliminate his enemies. The campaign continued until the end of 1931, killing approximately 70,000 people, and reducing the size of the Red Army from 40,000 to less than 10,000. The de facto leader of the party at the time, Zhou Enlai, originally supported Mao's purges as necessary to eliminate KMT spies. After Zhou arrived in Jiangxi in December 1931, He criticized Mao's campaigns for being directed more against anti-Maoists than legitimate threats to the party, for the campaign's general senselessness, and for the widespread use of torture to extract confessions. During 1932, following Zhou's efforts to end Mao's ideological persecutions, the campaigns gradually subsided. In December of 1931, Zhou replaced Mao Zedong as secretary of the First Front Army and political commissar of the Red Army. Liu Bocheng, Lin Biao and Peng Dehui all criticized Mao's tactics at the August 1932 Ningdu Conference. The most senior leaders to support Mao in 1932 were Zhou and Lari, who had become disillusioned with the strategic leadership of other senior leaders in the party, and Mao's old comrade, Zhida. Zhou's support was not enough, and Mao was demoted to being a figurehead in the Soviet government, until he regained his position later. During the Long March, Chiang's encirclement campaigns in early 1933, Bogu arrived in Jiangxi with the German Kuomintang advisor Otto Braun and took control of party affairs. Zhou at this time, apparently with strong support from party and military colleagues, reorganized and standardized the Red Army. Under Zhou, Bo, and Braun, the Red Army defeated 4 attacks by Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist troops. Chiang's fifth campaign was much more difficult to contain. In September 1933, the National Revolutionary Army under Chiang Kai-shek eventually completely encircled Jiangxi, with the advice and tactical assistance of his German advisor, Hans von Seeckt. A fortified perimeter was established by Chiang's forces, and Jiangxi was besieged in an attempt to destroy the communist forces trapped within. In July 1934, the leaders of the party, dominated by the 28 Bolsheviks, a militant group formed in Moscow by Wang Ming and Bogu, forced Mao from the Politburo of the Communist Party in Ruijin and placed him briefly under house arrest. Mao was replaced by Zhou and Lari as leader of the military commission. Chiang's strategy of slowly constructing a series of interlinking blockhouses was successful, and Chiang's army was able to capture several major communist strongholds within months. Between January and March 1934, the nationalists advanced slowly. Bo and Braun continued to employ orthodox military tactics, resulting in a series of defeats and heavy communist casualties. In October 1934, KMT troops won a decisive battle and drove deep into the heart of the Central Soviet area. When Ruijin became exposed to KMT attack, party leaders faced the choice of either remaining and perishing or of abandoning the base area and attempting to break through the enemy encirclement. In August 1934, with the Red Army depleted by the prolonged conflict, a spy, Mojorm, who had been placed by Zhou and Lari in the KMT army headquarters in Nanchang, brought news that Chiang Kai-shek was preparing a major offensive against the communist capital, Ruijin. The communist leadership decided on a strategic retreat to regroup with other communist units, and to avoid annihilation. The original plan was to link up with the Second Red Army commanded by Heilong, thought to be in Hubei to the west and north. Communications between divided groups of the Red Army had been disrupted by the Kuomintang campaign. During the planning to evacuate Jiangxi, the First Red Army was unaware that these other communist forces were also retreating westward.